Bruchim Habaim, welcome. Welcome to the Yom Hashoah Memorial Program, 2021-5781. My name is Dennis Waldman. I am one of the cantors of Temple Bethel of Rockaway Park. I am affiliated with Congregation Ohev Tzedek of Bell Harbor. And through our accompanist, Stuart Rausch, and our soloist, Stephen Wagner, I am connected with West End Temple. Together with other Jewish organizations and non-Jewish organizations who are viewing this program, for me personally, this truly is a community and family event. In a moment, you will hear the powerful and eloquent words of our mentor and matriarch, Ruth Wagner Pegursky. Ruth's message, sensitized even more so by the COVID pandemic, is the theme of our program. And that message is, Yizkor, we will remember.
My name is Ruth Wagner Pegursky. I was born May 8, 1926. I am a Holocaust survivor. Until I was 10 years old, I lived peacefully in Berlin, Germany, with my parents, Regina and Joshua Wagner, and my older brother, Benjamin. In 1936, Hitler was chancellor, and a year earlier, the Nuremberg laws had been passed. When my father refused to return his business over to a non-Jew, we were forced to leave Germany. We had nowhere else to go, so we went to Poland, where my parents were born. We relocated to the city of Katowice. We stayed in that city until September 1939, when the Nazis invaded Poland. We fled on a horse and buggy to my grandparents' home in Brzostek, Poland, which is 90 kilometers outside of the big city of Krakow. We lived with my grandparents until 1942, when the Jewish ghetto was liquidated. I saw and experienced terrible things. I witnessed my infant cousin ripped from his mother's arms, bludgeoned to death by a Nazi. I saw my grandparents shot in the head when my grandmother refused to cut my grandfather's beard. The worst was when I saw my beloved brother loaded on a truck and sent to Auschwitz, not knowing that I would never see him again. Soon after, my father was also taken to Auschwitz. But before he left, he blessed me, the way we bless our children every Friday night. But in this last blessing, he added something. He turned to me and told me, You, my child, you shall live. You shall live to tell it all. Words do matter, and live I did. But my mother, father, brother, and about 200 of my family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all were killed. It would take me a long time to tell you how I survived, how I had to pretend to be a mute, how I took a false identity, how I became a slave laborer. Where did I get the courage to live? Perhaps in the blessing and commandments that my father gave me. What I have learned in my long life is that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things. The lesson I want to leave you, my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, is when you see something that is not right, an injustice, stand up, be an upstander, have courage, and never be a bystander.
My name is Jeffrey Wolk, and I'm one of the cantors here at Temple Bethel of Rockaway Park, and we formally begin our program with saluting America with the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? For those of you who are standing, please be seated. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Matt Carl here at Temple Bethel of Rockaway Park. Recently, our entire world has been turned upside down. Our country turned upside down. Everything has seemed so different, and at least seemed so unexpected. But as Jews, we are keenly aware that the unexpected can happen, that the world can turn upside down. While nothing truly ever compares to the Shoah, we, the Jewish people, have nevertheless learned from it a message to take to the entirety of the world right now. There is hope. In commemorating the Yom Hashoah, we memorialize, we mourn, we express sadness, disgust, and anger. But we also express hope. It's part of what we mean when we say never again. We mean a hope that things will never get that bad again, a hope that they'll get better. My hope today is that this message of our people, in the merit of those killed and those whose lives were devastated by the Shoah, this message of hope today will spread throughout the world. With great hope, shalom.
I'm Rabbi Dennis Ross, West End Temple. and I am honored to join you for this Yom Hashoah Holocaust commemoration. As we raise up the memories of that horrible time in modern history, even as other nations and people continue to suffer persecution and genocide, we take Yom Hashoah to underscore that in the history of human hatred, the Holocaust stands unique, unlike any other calamity through the ages. First, the Holocaust builds on 2,000 years of anti-Semitism. Through the millennia, our people suffered from the banning of Jewish study and the burning of our books, pogroms and Inquisition, restrictions on where we could live, on the kind of work we could do to provide for ourselves and our families. The Nazis stood on this foundation of hatred to fabricate distorted science, report a distinct Jewish race, alleging that they as Aryans were biologically superior to all others, especially Jews, who, according to this fabrication of science, posed a genetic threat to Aryan domination. Thus, a legacy of 2,000 years of hating Jews, combined with baseless biological arguments, created the Holocaust, a calamity like no other. So let us use this day to ensure that we remember and ensure that everyone knows that the Holocaust stands as an unparalleled situation. May the memory of the victims live on in our hearts and in our world.
In life, there are dreams. Some dreams are tragic. Some dreams are beautiful. The Shoah was the nightmare of nightmares. But that was followed by another dream, Eretz Yisrael, Israel. On this occasion, as we memorialize the Holocaust, we dedicate the song, Last Night, to the painful dream of the past, but also to the dream of the future, which is a world of shalom, peace. Last night I had a dream I was in heaven. It was a dream like none I ever dreamt. Last night I was in heaven, and this dream was surely heaven sent. I met my Bubby and my Zadie, my lost family. I heard 6 million voices calling out to me, and they all came to greet me. There were tears, there was joy. What a moment in heaven, what a bittersweet day. And they said, you must return. And they said, you must return. Tell all the world what we endured. Never let them forget. And they said, you must return. And they said, you must return. Teach all mankind how we all died, a lesson they won't regret. I saw the children, little children, most tragic of all. They were playful and free. There was peace in their souls. Their pain and their suffering long ago gone. And now here in heaven they played in the sun. And they said, you must return. And they said, you must return. Tell all the world what we endured.
let them forget. And they said, you must return. And they said, you must return. Teach all mankind how we all died, a lesson they won't regret. Last night I had a dream I was in heaven. It was a dream like none I ever dreamt. Last night I was in heaven, and that dream was surely heaven sent.
Hello, I'm Fern Zager, a child of Holocaust survivors. My father, Sol Aaron, escaped from the Vilna ghetto to fight with the partisans with his friend Abba Wagner in the Rudniki forest. When he returned to his beloved city, he found that none of his family had survived. My mother, Frida Wachschlag Aaron, survived as a teenager in the Warsaw ghetto and through its uprising, and then the death camp Majdanek and 2 other concentration camps. She came to America and went with Coretta Scott King to the Geneva Peace Talks in 1962, representing the United States. She eventually received her PhD in comparative literature, writing about the poetry written in Yiddish and Polish during the Holocaust. Today, I light a candle to remember my family and the 6 million Jews who were killed during the Holocaust and the 1.5 million Jewish children who were among them. Today, we remember both to honor those who perished and to pass on their lessons to our children and our grandchildren and their children, to fight complacency in the face of indifference, prejudice, and hate, and to honor those who sacrifice so that others can lead healthy and happy lives. And we gather to stand up for the rights of others and to prevent future genocides. We and the rest of the world are now experiencing a new plague, the coronavirus. Many of us have been filled with fear and anxiety. Many have become ill. There have been lives lost. Children are confused. Routines have been cast aside to be replaced by new routines, a very new normal. But there is a silver lining. Every crisis has both dangers and opportunities. Yes, there are opportunities. People are connecting with families and friends in ways they haven't connected in the past, using innovative technologies. Just look at today's event. And we see brave souls who have stepped up to help us all, our healthcare and essential workers, first responders, volunteers, and so many others. And like the righteous who risked their lives to save others during the Holocaust, honored at Yad Vashem, we thank these brave souls and are forever, forever grateful. But most of all, we once again see how flexible and resilient we can be, even during unimaginable times, under unimaginable stress. This is something the Jewish people know well. Flexibility and resilience lead to survival and give us hope for our future. Because as my mother would say, without hope, no one could have survived. And so, I light this candle in memory of the past, in recognition of the present, and in hope for the future. We will endure.
As many of you know, the partisans were the freedom fighters of the Shoah. These heroes define selflessness, courage, and tenacity. Here now is their anthem, the partisan song.
Never say that you are going your last way. The lead-filled skies above blot out the blue of day. The hour for which we long will certainly appear. The earth shall underneath and tread that we are here. The hour for which we long will certainly appear. The earth shall underneath our tread that we are here.
From lands of green trees to lands all white with snow, we are coming with our pain and with our woe. And where a spurt of our blood did drop, our courage will again sprout from the spot. And where a spurt of our blood did drop, our courage will again sprout from the spot.
The morning sun will radiate the day, and the enemy and past will fade away.
But should the dawn delay or sunrise wait too long, then let all future generations sing this song. But should the dawn delay or sunrise wait too long, then let all future generations sing this song. Over the years, many of us have been fortunate to listen to survivors and the adult children of survivors. Their words, their thoughts are informative, inspiring, and moving. At this time, we wish to offer another perspective, the perspective of a loving and proud adult grandchild. Here now is Jeremy K.
Every generation has a name. Whether you are a baby boomer, Generation X, or a millennial, we all have a title that defines us. The generation that lived through the atrocities of the Holocaust are called by the name survivors. Many people my age never had the opportunity to know a survivor, let alone live with one. I have. Hello, my name is Jeremy K., and I am the grandson of survivors. Both my maternal grandparents, Albert and Dora Tatarka, and my paternal grandparents, Henry and Helen K., were survivors of the Holocaust. Sadly, they are no longer with us, but their memories and their accomplishments live on with their families. I was born and raised in Bell Harbor. My family and I became members of Congregation Ohab Tzedek. I attended elementary school at the Yeshiva of Bell Harbor, and for middle and high school, I went to the Hebrew Academy of the Five Towns and Rockaways, where the subject of the Holocaust was consistently taught. Today, I live in Oceanside, New York, and I work at the Madeline Chocolate Company, the largest manufacturer in the Rockaways, a company started by my grandfather, Henry, and his brother-in-law, Jack Gold, also a survivor. My grandparents did not speak often about what they went through during the war, but we knew they defied the odds to be able to start a new life here in America. During my junior year of high school, I was a participant on the March of the Living. This trip, during which we visited the Jewish ghettos, and the concentration camps in Poland gave me a real-life visual accounting of the horrors that took place under the Nazi regime, and a better understanding of what my grandparents had suffered through. Over the past 4 years, I have also had the privilege of working for the American Society of Yad Vashem, their annual dinner, as a member of the team who runs their program each year. This event celebrates the lives of the survivors, remembers the victims, and honors those who support both the museum and the continued education of the next generation so that no one will ever forget. Every year there is a moment where we ask all the survivors in attendance to stand for a round of applause. And every year, the number of those standing diminishes. Because of this, the purpose of their mission becomes even more valuable. My maternal grandparents, the Tatarkas, were originally from Poland. My grandfather, Albert, was born in Olkusz, and my grandmother, Dora, was born in Szybin. When the war broke out, my grandfather moved through multiple concentration camps before eventually ending up in Auschwitz. Towards the end of the war, he was forced onto a death march, which he managed to survive and was liberated shortly after. My grandmother had been placed in several work camps where she spent the entire war. They both suffered serious hardships throughout those years. Apart from the loss of their families, my grandfather lost his toes to frostbite from the death march, and my grandmother suffered from exposure to dust particles from the materials she worked on in the factories. When the war was over, both my grandparents were placed in a displaced persons camp where they met each other and wed. Towards the end of their stay in the DP camp, my mother was born, and 9 months later, they boarded a ship to America. My grandparents settled in Washington Heights, and my grandfather worked for a relative in their grocery store. Eventually, my grandfather opened his own grocery store in Harlem and worked there for many years until he sold it and took a job as a cheesemonger at Zabar's. I did not have the honor of knowing my maternal grandmother for very long. She passed away when I was 7 years old from leukemia, a disease that she blames on her work in the factories, caused by inhaling the toxic dust. Towards the end of her life, she moved into my home where I had the privilege of seeing her every day. She always had a smile and a kind word to say. She was proud of all of her grandchildren and never complained, even though she was suffering terribly. She was strong till the end. My grandfather, on the other hand, I got to know very well. He retired soon after my grandmother passed and moved to Brooklyn. Every Friday, he would come to my parents' house and spend Shabbos with us. When I was old enough, I became his chauffeur, and we would talk about the past and about the future on our weekly Friday afternoon drives. On the high holidays, we would pray together, and although he was legally blind, my grandfather would daven all the words from memory. He knew it all. He was devoted to Judaism and prayer. He lived long enough to see 8 grandchildren and over 20 great-grandchildren. As my grandfather grew older, he would talk about how these years were supposed to be the golden years, but to him, they were not so golden. Every time we had this conversation, I would remind him that it says in Pirkei Avot, in Ethics of the Fathers, Ezehu Ashir Hasameach Belchelko, Who is a rich man? He is a man who is happy with his lot in life. I would point out all the blessings he had, surviving the Holocaust, to then marrying my grandmother and raising a family with her, to watching his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren grow up and continue in the ways of Judaism. This always brought a smile to his face, and he would tell me how wise I was. I think he initiated this conversation on purpose, to hear me tell him this answer each and every time, but I did not mind, because it always made me happy to see him smile. My paternal grandparents, Henry and Helen Kay, were also originally from Poland. My grandfather was born in Berlin, Germany, and at a young age he moved to Katowice, Poland. My grandmother was born in Charnow, Poland. When the war broke out, my grandfather was deported to Buchenwald and was liberated by General Eisenhower. My grandmother was sent to work camps throughout the war. Both lost siblings as a result of the brutalities of the Nazis. After the war, my grandfather was hired by the US Army, translating languages of German and Polish to English, and assisted the Army in capturing Nazi war criminals. My grandmother returned to her hometown in search of any living relatives. While searching for survivors, my grandmother came across a guard from a work camp in Czechoslovakia that called her by her identical twin sister's name. As a result of this chance encounter, my grandmother learned that her sister was alive, and they were soon reunited. My grandparents met and wed after the war and came to America in 1946. My grandfather was hired by Barton's Chocolate, his relatives, who sponsored him to come to America. After around a year of working for them, he went out on his own and started the Madeline Chocolate Company. My grandmother worked at Barton's as well, and then took on the role of managing their home. I was only 8 years old when my grandfather, Henry Kay, passed away, but he left a lasting impression on me. He had a very strong personality, and everyone knew when he walked into the room. He was loved by many and was always the life of the party and the quickest to crack a joke. As a child, I frequently visited the chocolate factory, and my grandfather would pay me to work on the line, picking out the bad chocolates. It was a scene right out of I Love Lucy. One Friday, when I was visiting the factory, my grandfather took me on a ride on his scooter, which he used to get around. Towards the end of the ride, he gave me the wheel, and I crashed into one of the machines. He got so angry with me, and I started yelling, and I went running to my mother in tears. That Friday evening, he came to our house for Shabbos dinner. I trembled with fear, unsure what I would say to him, and if he would still be angry with me. He called me over, gave me a big hug and a kiss, and told me that work is work, and family is family. Never the two shall mix, but family always comes first. This is a lesson that has stuck with me to this day. My grandmother, Helen Kay, was the epitome of a matriarch. She knew what she wanted, she did what she wanted, and she got what she wanted. A cook and a baker, I can still taste her gefilte fish and her kokosch cake, flavors we continue to try to recreate, but can never get exactly right. One summer, at sleepaway camp, I wanted a little extra money to use the canteen, so I decided to write my grandmother a nice letter, and in the postscript, I asked her for some spending cash. She replied with a nice long letter of her own, and in her postscript, she taped a penny with the message, Do not spend it all in one place. That is who she was. She had no problem expressing her opinion and telling you how she felt. She was strong and independent, a true role model for us all. My grandparents went through hell and back, but in the end, they persevered, and I stand here as a testament to their strengths. They held on to their convictions, and through their fortitude, passed their strength onto their family. They taught us all that no matter how hard life is, or how many roadblocks might stand in our way, we can all overcome the hardships we face through persistence, patience, and determination. With fewer and fewer survivors still around to tell their stories, we need to use these lessons we have learned from them in our daily lives and continue to teach the generations that follow. We need to use these tools to fight the ever-growing antisemitism that we face today, and to continue to educate our own children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren about the Holocaust, so that this never happens again. Through our behavior and efforts, we will create a future generation with a name that signifies strength. To my beloved grandparents and all the victims of the Shoah, I say, Zichronam Livracha. May their memory be a blessing.
At this time, we offer the memorial prayer and the Kaddish.
קדושים וטהורים כזון הרקיע מסיינים את נשמות הישרים והישרות שהולכות לעולמן. בעבור שיונו נודרים לצדוקו ביעד הזכרה נשמותיהם שיעלו שנהרגו ושנשחטו ושנחנקו ושנשרפו ושנקברו באושוויץ, בבוכנוולד, בברגן-בלזן, בחלמו, בדכאו, במיידניק, בסוביבור, בטרבלינקה, בטרזנשטאט, בטרנסניסטריה, בווילנה, בוורשה גטו, בבאבי יאר, ויתר מקומות קדושים. מנוחתם לחבין מלא רחמים, יסתירם בסתר כנעביו ליום עולמי, ויצר רהון בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם. נוי נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהם. ונאמר Amen.
O merciful God, who dwells on high and full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, to the dear departed souls of the millions of men, women, and children of the Shoah who were murdered and savagely taken from us in the most tragic example of man's inhumanity to man. May the resting place of the beloved victims reside in the Garden of Eden. May the Master of Mercy shelter them in the shelter of his wings, and may their souls be bound up in the bond of life. May their memory be a blessing, and let us all say, Amen. You may join in the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, B'yalma divrach hirutei, b'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach, leolam ulalmei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal, Shemei dukucha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata b'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'yama b'yemru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu, V'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen. For those of you who may be standing, please be seated. At this time, we turn to our young people with a message of their own. And that message again is, Yizkor, we will remember.
Yizkor, Gedenk, Zachor, remember. Here we are at this time of year, heightened emotionally by the COVID crisis, commemorating not only what is arguably the most tragic period in Jewish history, but perhaps in human history, namely the Shoah. This experience emphasizes the phrase sinat chinam, blind hatred, Or, as Elie Wiesel has articulated many times, man's inhumanity to man. The Holocaust also brings to mind the other expression: the more things change, the more things stay the same. Then and now, we in the Jewish family at large not only face antisemitism from without, but we face assimilation, ignorance, and apathy from within. But we are a resilient people. We here, and you, the viewer, are testimony that the events of the Holocaust will not be forgotten. Yizkor, we will remember. Yes, the more things change, the more things stay the same. In the early 1930s, in Germany, German Jews generally lived in comfort and maintained positions of authority and respect. Even with the rise of the Nazi movement, the attitude of a large segment of the Jewish community was one of denial. Some of these feelings were expressed with sentiments such as "Shah still," "I don't make waves," or "This is temporary and it will pass," and "What can one person do?" In the end, when the extermination plans went into effect, no one was spared, including the approximately 1.5 million children who were brutally murdered. In their memory, let us pause to listen to the song "Little Hands," with music and lyrics by Janet and Ronald Goldman. Here now is "Little Hands."
Little hands sought to grasp, little minds sought to hear, but they heard only terror, they learned only fear. Little eyes searched the skies, little cheeks begged a kiss, but they saw only dark clouds and all love was mist. They were all like my classmates who greet me each day. They just wanted to giggle, they wanted to play. They had pictures to draw, they had poems to say, but their colors and sweet rhymes were all torn away. Little tales never told, little dreams never shared, their voices were silenced and nobody cared. Little lips never sang, little souls wandered lost, memories and harmonies were shattered and lost. When a play date is over and comes to an end, we feel sad that it's over and we cry for our friends. Those were brothers and sisters who won't come again. We will cry for them now and cry never again. So now our eyes must see, and now our minds must hear all the beauty and laughter they watch disappear. When our eyes search the skies, when we strive for our goals, they'll be part of our lives and be part of our souls. We will never forget them, their story won't end. They were more than a memory, they were more than a friend. They are brothers and sisters who won't come again. We will cry for them now and cry never again. We will cry for them now and cry never again, never again, never again.
When it comes to the lessons of the Shoah, all is not gloom and doom, as things are happening worldwide in a constructive and dramatic manner. For example, last year, the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, with other organizations, developed a technology center that performs daily, rigorous research in connection with communications of hate. This center provides training in how to respond and offers classes and resources to students ranging from kindergarten to graduate school.
In the last 18 months, reports show that through the combined effort of Jewish and non-Jewish organizations, the Ku Klux Klan is in serious decline. Through a coordinated effort, as each hate rally is planned, a team is sent in advance to strike back and help the community mobilize a peaceful but forceful counter-protest.
Last year in Texas, an anti-biased unit arrested John Denton and 4 others who were part of one of the largest neo-Nazi groups in the country. These criminals targeted and harassed Jewish journalists and other notable Jewish figures and sent them material with imprinted swastikas. Following conviction, the neo-Nazi group has been continually decimated, and a legislative initiative is in place to fight anti-Semitic cybercrime.
In late 2020, the ADL Center on Extremism, in working with the military, arrested tactical force specialist Jarrett Smith, who was a member of a neo-Nazi organization and was privately developing explosive devices in a large-scale manner. Because of the information gathered, Smith was arrested and found guilty at trial. Sadly, when we think of the mass destruction contemplated in this case, it is hard not to think of the many villages, towns, and communities in Europe completely destroyed in the Shoah. In that spirit, we offer the song Sabrent by Mordechai Gebirtig. Sabrent, it burns. Sabrent.
Brennt, briderlich, se brennt, unser Orem Städtel nebech brennt. Böse Winden mit ihr gosen, Reisen brechen und se blosen, starker noch die wilde Flammen, als schon brennt. Und ihr steht und guckt, so sich mit verlegte Hand. Und ihr steht und guckt, so sich unser Städtel brennt.
It is burning. Dear brothers, it is burning. Our poor little town, it is burning. Angry winds whip the flames. Everything is on fire. And you stand helplessly and stare, while the flames grow higher and our little towns burn.
Und ihr ihr steht und guckt, so sich mit verlegte Hand. Und ihr steht und guckt, so sich unser Städtel brennt. Se brennt, se brennt.
On February 19th this year, in Bulgaria, the European Court of Human Rights found Bulgarian court to be in error in ignoring complaints that a far-right politician was inciting hate for Jews.
On February 22nd, in the United Kingdom, there was an outcry and protest over a professor at Bristol University who was lecturing about a Jewish Zionist conspiracy.
In Israel, the Jerusalem Post recently reported that despite an increase of anti-Semitic acts worldwide, there's a drop in the number of anti-Semitic posts on social media due to the more responsible steps taken by the main social media companies.
This Holocaust memorial, together with the COVID pandemic, comes at a time when hate crimes and violent acts of bias towards Jews are up across the country, if not the world. Just look at the last few years, from Charlottesville to Pittsburgh, Poway to El Paso, Jersey City to Muncie, along with so many other incidents. Extremists feel emboldened to act out on their hate against Jews and others. The internet, social media, and online groups are clearly some offenders, as they still do not classify Holocaust deniers as hate speech. There is so much for all of us to be mindful of and do.
What then have we learned from this? At the very least, we have learned that leaders must speak out, that extensive education about anti-Semitism and the Holocaust must be provided to people of all ages, and that legislators should enact serious laws against hate crimes. More than ever, the Shoah still days are over.
When it comes to the Shoah, we of course cannot go back, but we can certainly think back, even if it is emotionally difficult. With this in mind, let us listen to the Holocaust song Reminiscence by Rabbi Solomon. It is a song that takes us back, and indeed, it is a song that makes us think. Here now is Reminiscence.
I was young, I had a fantasy that I would marry royalty, and everything seemed possible in the days when I was young. And I recall I had a sweetheart then. At times I still remember when we ran through fields of wildflowers in the days when I was young. But then there came a time of darkness when the whole world fell around us, and the Nazis came and dragged us to the ground. And I don't know why I survived it when so many others didn't. They took the best and left us nothing in the days when I was young. And now I know you are my family. You took me in out of my misery, and we have traveled down these many years as one. But yet I sometimes still remember those who perished while the whole world closed their eyes and turned away in the days when I was young, in the days when I was young.
This year, the Yom Hashoah observance, combined with the COVID pandemic experience, reminds us more than ever of the sanctity and the preciousness of each and every human soul. On this occasion, another emotional phrase that comes to mind is lost but not forgotten, with an emphasis on the words not forgotten. One of the poignant reminders of this message is the story of the poet and heroine Chana Senesh. Chana Senesh emigrated from Hungary to Israel in 1939 and lived on the kibbutz Sodot Yam. During World War II, Chana, with other Israelis and with training from the British, volunteered as a paratrooper to enter Hungary and rescue Jews about to be deported to Auschwitz. As part of a highly dangerous mission, she was dropped behind enemy lines in 1943. Chana was captured by the Nazis, beaten and tortured mercilessly, but would not disclose names or details of the mission. At her execution, as her last act, Chana refused to wear a blindfold, as she chose to defiantly look at her murderers face to face. Chana was executed on November 7th, 1944, at the age of 23, and buried in Mount Herzl in Jerusalem in 1950. Through her poetry, Chana left us more than her beautiful words. In one of her works, Eli, Eli, Shelo Yigamer Leolam, my God, I pray that these things never end, she speaks of a better life and a better world. Let us listen to her words with music by David Zahavi, in her memory and in memory of all of those who were taken from us in the Shoah. We, the young people, say, Yizkor, we will remember.
the rush of the waters, the crush of the heavens, the prayer of man, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crush of the heavens, the prayer of man. Yisrael Chai. The people of Israel live.
These extraordinary young men and women give us so much. They are our inspiration, they are our pride, and they are our future. But they also give us that precious commodity that we so desperately need, namely hope. In Hebrew, Hatikvah. Let us conclude our memorial program with our anthem of hope, Hatikvah. Thank you all for joining us. And yes, Yizkor, we will remember.